Can you imagine what would happen in your marriage if you set a goal together with your spouse and worked intentionally to achieve it? Aloha, I'm Sabbath Kapahu. Welcome to Invited Back. We're continuing in a deep dive mini-series based on the sessions at Stimulate Summit. Today we're talking about the session called Goal Setting 101. I had an opportunity to interview and spend some time with Kat Lee. She's the author of Hello Mornings, the book, and the founder of HelloMornings.org. What I loved about our conversation and the workshop that she led us through at Stimulate Summit was she broke goal setting down into its most essential form. There are so many programs and methods and ways that people are teaching us about how to set goals and achieve them. And if we don't do the work ourselves to address the actual problem that we're trying to solve, we can do all the things over and over again, but we won't actually have achieved our goal, or rather solved our problem at the end of our time with whatever method we're choosing. So she started off the workshop by talking about the difference between a goal versus a problem, and how oftentimes we forget to distinguish what is the problem that we're actually trying to solve. We're not just trying to set a goal and work towards that, but we're actually going through a repetitive process that's changing our habits on a daily basis, or changing our thought patterns, or changing the way we interact with our spouse or our family. And that's the thing that is going to solve the problem in the end. So it's not just setting a goal, but it's setting a goal that addresses a problem. And the way that we do that, I'm sure many of you have heard of this, but we set SMART goals. So Kat talked to us about setting goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. She also talked to us about picking 3. She said there's so much power in not trying to do everything all at once, but being really intentional about the things that are the main things in our lives, and the things that we are living for on a daily basis based on a mission statement that perhaps you have had a chance to sit down and really dive deep into who you are, what you've been called to do, and how you're supposed to walk that out on a daily basis. Again, imagine if we had an opportunity to do this with our spouse, to create a mission statement and then set goals based on those things that we know that we were created to do together. So she said, it's easy to get overwhelmed. So pick 3. Start with 3 for the year, and then 3 for the quarter, and 3 for the month, 3 for the week, and 3 for the day. And if that's too overwhelming, just start with the daily goals and then work your way up. But the reality is, when we get a chance to set goals that happen on those increments, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and then for the year, the daily goals can help, when achieved, to work us towards those weekly goals. And those weekly goals help us to work towards those monthly goals. And those monthly goals, as you can imagine, work towards those quarterly goals. And then we find ourselves at the end of the year having actually solved some problems that we set out to solve within our marriages. And if you're anything like me or anybody who's married, there are problems to be solved. Don't let anybody fool you into thinking that they don't have problems, that there are not things that need to be worked on or goals that need to be set. We all have them. And I will be the first to admit that there are things that at the beginning, or even before I got married, that my husband and I have talked about that I am still working through. I am stubborn, and I am not a good listener when it comes to certain things. And I am working on my over communicating, as I've talked about in some past videos. So this is a preaching to the choir session right now. These are things that I am constantly needing to remember, constantly needing to implement and apply to my life. And there are seasons that I can do really good. And then there are seasons where it feels like any kind of goal setting just is going to get thrown out the window. and it's a little bit of chaos. And we have to know what season we're in. And we have to know what we're capable of in this time. What is our leadership capacity as a wife and as a mom? And if you own a business, or if you're an employee, or if you're a community member, what is your capacity? What is your season? If it's just one goal for the day, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? And how can you set a goal to achieve it? Another thing that Kat talked about through the session, which I loved, is she talked about this idea of good, better, best. So set a goal that's good, set a goal that's better than that good goal, and set a goal that is the best possible outcome. So whatever goal you are working towards, you're not going to fail, really, because you're at least going to achieve that best case scenario. And if you get to the even better goal, that second one, you've done better than best. And if you get to that third goal, which is what I love about Kat, you've done the best of the best. There is always a victory to be had and celebrated if we set ourselves up for success in that way. So that's another thing Kat talked about in her workshop. And she also talked about the idea that there's this goal versus process, right? Which we kind of talked about earlier. What is the problem you're trying to solve? The goal is the end result, but we have to set ourselves up in a process that's going to get us there. So we have to make sure that we create a process that we can follow through with integrity. And she went on to list a bunch of different ways that we can do that. We can set aside time at the end of each day, or really at the end of each week, maybe is more realistic, to plan and review what worked, what didn't work, what are we going to do better next time. And we can either set that date with ourselves, or we can set it with our spouse, because we're working on this goal together. You'll hear Kat talk about this in the session interview clip that will post shortly after this, in a few days. But she talked about how goal setting brings us together. And the reality is that if you are working towards something with your spouse, or even with your kids, that goal is going to bring you together. And the process of achieving that, the process of solving a problem together, is going to bring challenges. Yes, 100% guarantee. And it's going to be hard, and it's going to cause you to stretch your capacity for grace and for forgiveness. It's going to cause us to need to be really clear at communicating if we need help because we're failing in a certain area of this goal that we're trying to achieve. And those are really real things. And if you feel like you're failing, if you need a bunch of extra grace, if you haven't been able to achieve or solve that problem, you're so not alone. I am absolutely right here with you. And we're on this journey together. And that's really my heart behind Stimulate Summit, is we need each other to be able to say, hey, you too, me too. We're going to work on this together. We need safe spaces to talk about the goals that we're setting, whether that's in your intimate life with your husband, whether you need to put something like having sex together on a calendar, whether you need to be able to communicate about the way that you appreciate or don't appreciate certain things about your husband. If you guys are working toward a financial goal together, if you're working toward a career goal together, it's all about the process. And it's all about how we choose to walk through that process and give ourselves space to reimagine what we think and what we expect, or things that may have been ingrained into us unconsciously that would be helpful for us to remove in order to solve these problems. We need to be able to reinvent, to let go of things that aren't working, to review, and then to plan for change. And we need to reinvite our new selves back into a space of a healthy relationship together, where we can set SMART goals, where we can realize the difference between the goal and the problem, or the goal and the process, and then we can take one step forward together with love, with acceptance, with grace, and with understanding. So stay tuned for the next session. We're going to talk about some of the resources, and then we're going to hear from Kat in the session clip interview. I am on this journey with you guys. I am sending aloha, and I will see you next time. Take care.